You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Another wonderful Friday I get to spend here with you and talking football and hopefully helping everybody make some good lineup decisions along the way and maybe making a little bit of extra scratch, right? Trying to capture some units this weekend in a kind of another rather lackluster quarterback weekend here, but things will get better, right? This is kind of the last dominant big team fantasy relevant weekend worth of buys that we're going to see. So, yes, still a couple more teams to go, but anytime you're missing Dolphins and Eagles in the same
Chiefs.
week, you say the Chiefs, but I think it's a name only, right? Like Kelsey,
Right.
Mahomes has been kind of down this year as far as what we're used to. Kelsey, but I mean, no one's crying over missing MVS this weekend.
Right. Pacheco's been pretty good down the stretch here too, right? Like solid RB2 for a lot of folks that they probably had to pivot off of. So, and you're right. The Mahomes thing, yes, he has been certainly down this season. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Chiefs defense is playing so well so far on the season that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to do Patrick Mahomes-like things in order for them to win football games when the defense is holding most opponents to less than 20 points. So, it's one of those that's kind of a different script than what we're used to seeing out of Kansas City. But it is Friday, like you said, time for the weekly huddle. Bet, set, snap. Still can't get it right, but it should be a good one here. Lots of fun things going on here. And if anybody has any questions, anything like that, make sure you get them in the chat throughout, and we'll go through those and we'll rock and roll throughout these things to help y'all get your lineups ready to go and get whatever questions you may have about your fantasy football rosters locked and loaded here heading into Sunday. So, there was also a lot of teams that used their bye kind of coming back here. It seems like we've got a few players kind of making their entrance back into the fantasy world here after missing some time here. So that's an interesting thing there as well. That's kind of going on. Any other kind of news notes you want to hit up, or should we start into?
Obviously, T. Higgins has been ruled out. Nico Collins has been ruled out. Damian Pierce has been ruled out. Michael Thomas got into an incident here this evening.
Right, there's so much still unfolding with that one.
Yeah, so
we don't have any information.
Yeah, keep an eye on it, right? Like we don't have any information, but you definitely keep an eye on it tomorrow and leading up to game time if you're having to start him this week.
Just keep an eye out for the info on that alleged incident.
Yep, absolutely. So, definitely some extra pivots. But the good thing is Justin Jefferson got back to practice.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to play this week, but I think that's okay. Honestly, even if he doesn't play before their week 12 bye, I'm okay. Like as a Jefferson owner, I'm okay. Like I don't love having to fill holes without him, but I want to make sure he's ready for the home stretch because I do think Dobbs will absolutely target him and allow him to be a very consistent fantasy asset here for the home stretch. So I just want to make sure he's healthy. We don't want a re-injury. These soft tissue things are sensitive. So keep working, doing the right thing. JJ, we can't wait to have you back, buddy, but take care of yourself until then.
Absolutely. Kyler making his season debut here. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting to see what happens down there in the desert. Has kind of a plus matchup as well. First game back. So that's going to be exciting to see how he looks and all of that coming off the injury. David Montgomery Also, looks like he's going to be returning into the fold this week as well. Logged a lot of practice time this week and looks like he's a full go here on Sunday. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that backfield too and see what that split's going to look like, right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs has certainly done a very good job over the last few weeks, and it'll be very interesting to see how that backfield kind of goes with both of those guys healthy and how that's going to look and work. So,
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other thoughts here on any other news and notes we want to hit up? Looks like we got a couple of questions.
Did you watch the game last night?
I attempted to. It was so just, special teams, right? Like, while it's a very good facet of the game and it's a very pivotal facet and all of that, it is not what knocks my socks off. Like, it just does not blow back my hair, curl my toes. Like, it's not what gets that job done for me.
I was excited because I went 3-0.
Yes, you and I both did.
Yes. So, I mean, that's why I liked it. The game
Yes.
itself was rather meh, and I wasn't quite so sure how that was going to shake out with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but we got
Yes.
there, and it hung in. So I like being 3-0 on a Thursday heading into the weekend.
Yep. And COD Reaper saying that last night's game put him to sleep. I'm not gonna lie, I took a nap in part of that one as well. It's been a long time since I've fallen asleep watching a football game, but that was one of those snapped awake and went, oh, the game's still on. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. Hitting up some questions here. COD Reaper saying that T. Higgins is out as Deebo Samuel as a starter. Now I'm looking into free agents such as Jaden Reed, Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney. Can't pick up Mooney. He played last night. Michael Gallup, Juju, Isaiah McKinney, Equanimous St. Brown. He also played last night.
You're playing Deebo, right? As
Yeah.
much as I am not like an overwhelming Deebo proponent for fantasy, they find him ways to get the football. He is back. You got to trust it. And it's going to help. It's going to help Brock Purdy, if nothing else, right? It gives him another option, takes a little bit of pressure off of Brandon Ayuk, and it gives him a full complement of weapons between Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and Christian McCaffrey. So it should help. It should help Brock Purdy. So which I appreciate because I have to start him here in the home league this week because Jalen Hurts is on a bye. So, I'm expecting better things out of there. And with the Niners coming out of a bye week, I expect that they have a very good game plan in place to try and right the ship and get off of this 3-game skid that they're riding coming into the bye week. So Debo's a good pivot, right? It's not necessarily where we wanted to go. But as far as having to change at the moment, that's why it's a good depth piece because now you don't have to worry about it so much.
Right. And then COD Reaper also saying happy Friday, y'all, and happy Veterans Day. Absolutely. Tell the vets out there tomorrow we're not going to be on the air, but happy Veterans Day to you.
That's right.
All right. Benson saying, what's up, fellas? Not much. We're just getting ready to talk a little bet set snap. Hey, I got it right that time. Here we go. We're making things happen.
Bet set snap.
Absolutely. And then, you know what? While we're on Benson, we'll just stay right here. Which dog was the best UGA? I defer that to you.
9. No. 8 because he's the one. I think 8 because he's the one who went after the Auburn player. If my memory serves me correctly.
There
you remember
go.
that? Do you remember that one, Derek?
Yeah.
The Auburn player ran into that corner of the end zone and almost got a little too close. So yeah, obviously, 10's the champ, right? Back-to-back champ. So highest winning percentage as far as a UGA goes. But honestly, they're all damn good dogs, man.
There you go. Alrighty. Bennigan saying 3 and 6, 10-person PPR start, sit 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex. They've got Waddle. Well, he's on bye. Rice and T all out. Yep. Waddle, Rice are on bye. So Pollard, Eckler, JT, Aaron Jones. Wide receivers are Chase, Godwin, JSN, Christian Watson, and Jerry Jeudy.
All right. So you're playing Pollard and
Playing
Eckler
Eckler.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing Jamar Chase and Chris Godwin against Tennessee. So that takes care of the 2 running backs, 2 receivers. So Derek, what do you, I'm leaning one of the running backs here for a flex this week.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning as well. I'm just going to come out and say it. My lean would be towards is going to be towards Jonathan Taylor.
I'm leaning that direction also. Where's my handy dandy?
And some of that is the fact that the New England Indianapolis game I think is going to be a much higher scoring game than Green Bay and Pittsburgh to it. So this is one of those. It's not going to surprise me if that Green Bay Pittsburgh game is, we see a total of 20 points scored type of thing. And we'll get more into that one here as well. Whereas that New England and Indy game, there's going to be more points there. And while New England, I think, is going to try and slow down the run, Gardner Minshew's doing enough back there with the passing game that you can't just load up the box and play, 8-9 guys in the box on that one, because Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, all of those guys have shown that they can go out there and get it done week in and week out. So I think JT's the flex.
I would agree with that. Here's kind of the breakdown. Over the last 4 weeks, Pittsburgh has given up an average of 23.73 points to fantasy running backs per game, right? So obviously it's getting split up any which way, however many backs are playing. New England's given up 21.5. So basically just over a 2-point difference in that. But Green Bay is still keeping AJ Dillon involved, right? AJ Dillon has still seen, 4 to 8 4 to 8 carries and then at least 2 targets each game since Aaron Jones has been back, as Jonathan Taylor has been taking more and more of the snap share and really starting to dominate this Colts backfield. So I am going to lean where the volume is when all things are created equal, and JT has a little bit more pure talent than Aaron Jones does, even though he's still getting back into football shape. So I'm going to lean JT by a hair.
Yeah, and I think when I break it down and I look at the actual rankings, I got JT as a top 10 back this week for half point PPR type of rankings. Aaron Jones would be serviceable as an RB2, but he's going to be kind of that 15, 16 area. So yeah, it's JT. I like it. Bennigan saying OSU is number 1 now. We talked about that, where I still can't understand how, you don't lose games and you somehow move down the rankings. So
Winning, you're in.
Exactly.
I mean, I would not do it that way, but I know I also have a bias involved, but ultimately it doesn't matter. You win through and you're in. So, really, instead of Ohio State pounding their chest that they're ranked ahead of Georgia, you guys need to find a way not to lose to Michigan for the 3rd straight year and actually show up in that game.
Yeah, that would be helpful. All righty. Benson's saying that he's got some power rankings. Apparently I'm in first, but you're a sneaky second on there, saying that I seem super chill. So that's a solid 1, but you might have the best jokes and you might ultimately be the better pick. He says it's kind of like Stroud versus Young. I don't know, but I like the vibes here. Both of us.
We said Stroud all along.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth, both of us were on Stroud the entire offseason.
Yeah. Even going back before, going back through the draft process all the way back into February, March type of thing. Like those old episodes will speak for themselves on that one. So Michigan or Penn State?
Michigan. Penn State can't win against anybody who's worth a damn.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
Facts.
Now I want Penn State to win the game, but Franklin cannot coach against superior talent. Like, time and time again. He knocks on the door, he might get a toe in there, and then he finds a way to choke himself out on the doorstep. Like he cannot get the job done against upper echelon talent. So his most notable win might have been Auburn, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, what other big time game has Franklin won?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wait, congratulations. You beat Rutgers, Michigan State, and Purdue. It's like beating it's like playing Vanderbilt all 12 weeks of the regular season. Like, congratulations.
What was it? What was that quote that came out of Jacksonville when Urban was there? These NFL games, it's like you're having to play Alabama every week.
Yeah, he did say something like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like,
So
well, what did you think that was going to happen? Like,
right. These are all the guys that were so good that they went up a level, right? Like, come on, man. Stroud, and I'll keep it PG here, saying Stroud for the win. That's where we're gonna go.
that's
And
how I read it
then
as too.
exactly, Benson saying that the New Jersey State University, also known as Rutgers. All right, I like it. So
See, I like this crowd tonight. We'll talk a little college football, man. I'll yuck it up with some college ball.
Yep, I'm still bummed, especially after Bedlam, man. I'm bummed. Not gonna lie.
We talked about this though, right? Like, you guys were the class of that conference for so stinking long, and it's everybody's hype speech. You were everybody's Super Bowl,
right? And that's coming true. Still kind of reloading after all of that shenanigans a couple years ago. So I don't know this team and what Venables
at
is.
least you're ranked.
It's true. That's true. What
That
Venables is
USC
putting
team,
together. Yeah.
yeah, you guys will be fine. You'll keep building up defensively, right? You got a young nucleus.
Competitive
They'll
depth
continue to
all
build,
across the roster. So that's what we're going for there.
right?
All right. So guys, if you have any Benson saying the Washington's the most underpriced commodity, the dogs are live. So Washington's been a little surprising. I didn't think they'd necessarily, rock out the way that they have. I figured they would have dropped one by now, but
You got to remember how to play defense, or they're going to.
yeah. Well, it's just that Pac-12 football for you.
They started out defensively sound though, right? It's been the last 3 weeks. It's like all of a sudden they just kind of lost their swagger. Like, the Washington team, they've been impressive, right? I mean, Oregon's been impressive too, but that Oregon team it's not a whole lot different from the team that got the brakes beat off of them by Georgia at the beginning of last year. Other than it's Dan Lanning's system works, guys. Like, we saw it at Georgia. It took him a year to implement at Oregon, and he's getting, as his Georgia, he's getting dogs to play in his defense, and Oregon's going to cause some havoc, man. They're diverse enough offensively that they play enough really good defense that they're gonna go in the Big Ten and make a little bit of noise right away, because they're just not going to get pushed around. That's not how Lanning's going to do it, right? He'll build guys up front to deal with that Big Ten beefy offensive line power run scheme, but he'll keep defensive backs fast enough to deal with Ohio State and SEC speed receivers.
Right. I like it. Bryce over on the YouTube. Do I trade Mostert for Bijan? I have Tua and Waddle already.
Yes, if you could. Yes. Oh my
Smash
God,
yes.
yes. If
Move
you
on.
can get rid of Mostert and grab Bijan, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're gonna want Bijan too, right? Like, I get that the last few weeks for Atlanta and the Arthur Smith, coaching decisions there have a lot of us scratching our heads on that one. But when you look at the strength of schedule down the stretch there, Waddle and Tua and the Dolphins have an incredibly tough stretch for fantasy down the stretch there. So you're going to want to diversify a little bit, but also Bijan and the Falcons have one of the best kind of strength of schedules for running backs down the stretch here too. So yeah, if you can make the move for Bijan, you get it done.
And the Dolphins are front runners.
Right.
Right? They don't do well in big games. They haven't done well in close games. So until they prove otherwise. It's kind of like Penn State. They're the Penn State of the NFL. They beat up on everybody mediocre and lower, but when it's come time to play with the big boys, they can't get the job done.
Fair
Haven't
enough.
yet.
Alrighty. Does anyone even know how the Pac-12 conference tourney even works at this point? Line them up and let them go.
I thought they changed it for this last year, honestly. Like,
I
because for
think
a
it's
while it was
basically the
North and
top.
South, and now
Right. I
it's
think
like
it's
it's
just
top two.
Yep, and that's kind of what the Big 12's done as well, right?
Mm.
Just the number, and they really have done, and a lot of conferences have done that just simply from the standpoint that when you put your conference championship game on, if you have two top 10 teams playing each other, and whoever wins that one has a much better shot of making it into the football playoff than if you have, yeah, these divisional type of deals where you have the best team in the conference get play a close game against somebody that squeaked in because of the division there.
No, and it's what you need to do, right? When especially for the Pac-12, the conference just didn't have enough clout since the USC teams of the early 2000s. Um, they kind of fell out of grace there, so you had to pivot to that, and luckily they got two really good teams. Like I would love to see Washington Oregon rematch in Las Vegas. Like that would be a really cool conference finals game to watch.
Benson saying that you're going to be the interim coach over at Michigan, apparently on the power rankings there. If Harbaugh gets suspended, he's looking to you there. No disrespect to me here, but you got to have Kevin coach you up. So I like it.
We'll do our best, man. Like I said, I'm an SEC guy, so I can't guarantee I'd do any good in the Big Ten.
Fair enough. All righty. Well, guys, keep throwing your questions, comments, all that good stuff in the chat. We'll keep rocking and rolling through them. But you ready to start getting into the weekend slate here?
Let's do it, man. We got a lot of games to get to.
Got them games. Let's get them. All right, week 10. We got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the New England Patriots over in the Germany. Indy's favored by 1.5. The over under 42.5. Thoughts on this one?
Touched around back and forth on this game quite a bit. I think initially I took heck, I didn't even pull it up on my phone. It's just here on my computer. So I initially had New England, then I pivoted to Indy, and now I'm back on New England just because I don't know. I don't know if Indy is ready to go across the pond and win by 3. And I think that's ultimately kind of where I'm at is I think Indianapolis wins this game, but I'm not convinced that they're going to win by 3 just yet, but I'm not confident in this. This is probably actually the game that I didn't want to pick the most on the slate. So I have New England here at the moment. Either way, I'm taking the under, right? These any of the European games. So it doesn't matter whether it's in London, Germany, whatever. These games just have not been full of firepower, if you will. Teams are a little lethargic as they get over there. They're trying to acclimate to time zones. And it's just going to be kind of a slow grinding game. But nevertheless, it's something to watch Sunday morning if you like to wake up bright and early.
Yeah, no kidding. Bright and early is the key word there. So I am going to take Indy. I actually found Indy out there that where you could get them all the way down to 1.5. So I kind of like that one where I do think that Indy finds a way to get this thing done. I do like the under. Part of the reason I like Indy to get it done is New England is 1-10 against the spread as underdogs. Mac and Jones 1-13 in his last 14 as an underdog there. So New England and Mac Jones have had an incredibly tough time covering the spread as an underdog, and I'm just not gonna roll with that one. So I'm gonna take Indy, even though that 3 point seems like a bit there, but I'm gonna take Indy on that one. I'm gonna take the under. One of the props I really like was Mac Jones to go under his 223.5 passing yard prop.
You might have just convinced me with that thing of Smack Jones being 1-13 against the spread. Either way, I'm taking Gardner Minshew over 230.5 passing yards. I think it's going to be really close, but I think he just gets there.
I like it. Terry, welcome back in. Chase, who may be limited, Dell, Dotson, Javante Walker, Ken Walker. Got to pick two full PPR.
I'm taking Chase and
Why do I feel the answer is Chase and Javante?
that's where I initially went, was Chase and Javante. I've not been overly pleased with Kenneth Walker here the last couple weeks. He's nursing an injury. We've seen a lot of Zach Charbonnet on the field. Dell just came off a massive game, but without Nico Collins, Cincinnati did a decent job keeping Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in check this past week. So Tank Dell, not quite to that skill set just yet. So I think that they will be able to limit him enough. So I'm going to take Javante coming off the bye week, Monday Night Football. Again, I've said this on the show before, I like having an investment in Monday night. So Javante's been playing better as of recently. And I think the Broncos have a little bit of swagger here after coming off back-to-back wins and beating the Chiefs at home before a bye week. So I'm going to say they're give the Bills some hell, and Javante's a good flex play.
Yeah, my choice is Chase and Javante there as well. Dell has been super boom bust, right? And we were talking a little bit about this before the show. That Tank Dell is either going to get you an incredibly high ceiling or an incredibly low floor. Like he's either going to win you a week or he's going to bust out and lose you a week. Like there's no in between on that one. And just incredible best ball guy to have this season, but it's really tough to put him in on a season long when you got to rely on some points there. Same thing with Jahan Dotson. I just don't know that I want to really trust what we're going to see out there. Washington against Seattle, right? Like Seattle's been decent against the pass. So
if that game were in Washington, I think I might play Dotson, right? And take that upside, but I don't like him going all the way across, and the 12s just do a really good job in Seattle, right? And it is not my favorite franchise by any stretch, but that fan base is passionate and they are rowdy and they do cause havoc for opposing teams to come in there and deal with it, especially if you're not used to anything quite like it.
Absolutely. So, all right, Terry, there you go. We got your two there. All right, let's go ahead and hit our next matchup here. We got the Houston Texans, Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals favored by 6.5. The over under 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Houston to cover here, right? No T. Higgins. Obviously coming off a big win last week against Tampa Bay with CJ Stroud setting the rookie record for passing yards in a game. So they're riding a little high here at the moment. Cincinnati riding a high as well. Big game against Buffalo to kind of cement them, from a really bad start. But I think Houston at least keeps it close. Cincinnati money line, but I am going to take Houston on the spread. And then I'm going to take the under. No T. Higgins, no Nico Collins. So each quarterback's missing a weapon. Ultimately, I think the Bengals won't be afraid to, lean on Joe Mixon a little bit more as they have the last couple games. And it just keeps this game down just enough that we're not going to see 47 scored.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do think that the under comes into play. Like this very much seems like it's going to be a 24 to 20 type of scenario here. And that's where I kind of see this one playing out there. But this one here was very interesting when you start looking at it, right? Cincinnati is 4-0 since week 5. So they've played an incredible stretch here over the last 4 weeks. They're 4-0. They've won on average by more than 9 points on each one of those victories in that 4-0. So there's a lot of good things positive going there. Houston, though, 4-1 against the spread as underdogs with 4 straight victories against the spread. So Like you've got a bunch of kind of 4-0 over the last 4 games type of things when these things align here. But I do think that Houston does just enough to keep this inside of that 7 points here. So I think that we see this thing 24-20 type of deal. The fact that Houston, I think, is going to do just enough to get enough pressure on the Burrow. He's going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. That Jamar Chase, this is one of those that there is some question on how at what percentage is he playing, to the point where I think we see a little bit of a limited Jamar Chase here as well. No T. Higgins. So that's going to just kind of lower things down here, keeps it close, keeps us under. One of the props I liked, Joe Burrow, under 275.5 passing yards.
I'm taking CJ Stroud over 250.5 because Houston cannot move the ball running it. Like they have just not been able to. Didn't matter whether it's Pierce or Devin Singletary. Their source of offense comes from CJ Stroud's right arm. So not nearly the 470 that he had last week, but I do think he can get to 251.
Fair enough. I like that call so much. That was where I was going. And then I looked up at the dock and went, it's already been taken. So
That's right.
I really like that call.
Let's go.
Let's get to the next question in the chat here. Terrence, welcome back in, Terrence. Terrence in the lineup is Stroud, Hall, Harris, Wilson, Cooper, Colts, Ferguson, Hopkins. Bench, he's got the Ravens, Cup, Achane, Pickens, Higgins, Fournette, and Kyron Williams. Jerome Ford is in his flex as well. So starting lineup is that plus Jerome Ford as the flex. So I'm assuming, Terrence, you're just asking what do we think on the roster, any changes that we would make? Is that kind of what we're looking at here?
I'm swapping out Baltimore and putting them back in. Like that defense is so hot right now. There's no team I'm taking it out for, maybe than the Cowboys this week playing at home against the Giants. But that might be the only exception this week. Other than that, Ravens are my number 2 defense.
Yeah. So I'm right there with you as well, right? Like I swapped the Colts for the Ravens, and I think you're pretty well set there. Benson saying I would play Fournette. You manage your roster how you'd like. Not the way I'd roll. But
it'd be interesting to see if he gets activated for this Monday night game.
Right.
It's been a couple weeks now. Kind of see if he's ready or if they just brought him in as a depth piece as kind of a wake up call. But I don't know. The Bills still don't get the ball to James Cook enough. Like he is so clearly the best running back on that team, and they cannot figure out ways to get him the ball in space. Like I don't understand why they drafted a guy if you're just going to run him between the tackles and not get him in space. It just makes no sense.
Right. Yeah, a lot of that kind of going around there. All right, let's go ahead and head over to the next matchup here. We got the Saints and the Vikings. New Orleans favored by 3. The over-under is 40.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Minnesota at home in a shocker. I shouldn't say soccer. The game split pretty even. The last I looked, 52% of the money was on New Orleans. So it's pretty even down the stretch. I think Minnesota at home. I think these guys are going to rally behind Josh Dobbs. What he did last week, coming in with no practice time, really didn't even know the guys in the huddle. They had to tell him. Where to position himself in the huddle, right? Like all the thing, and for him to come back and lead them to victory, I think that he gained so much respect and just kind of a morale boost for this team, who got off to a shaky start, right? They killed themselves with turnovers at the beginning of the year, and it cost them a lot of games early in the season. And here they are. They're a game above 500. They have the opportunity to kind of keep pace in the division, at least try and stay within striking distance of the Lions here, but they got to have this one. And then hopefully you get Jefferson back and you can start making a run towards the end here. So I like Minnesota, and I actually like the over in this game. I do think we get to 41, 42 points.
Fair enough. I'm looking at this one, and I really like the Minnesota as well, right? Like not as shocking as it may seem there, right? Minnesota is 4-0 against the spread in their last 4. I do think that you're right, that we find enough points to make this thing go to the over. right? Not going to surprise me if we see this one ultimately come down to like a 21-20 type of deal. Like I think this one's going to play out incredibly close. One of the props that I really like was Joshua Dobbs to go over 28.5 rushing yards. The Saints have been pretty good against the run all year, but they have been very susceptible to quarterbacks putting up lots of rushing yards on them. And I think that holds true here as well. I'm not going to surprise me if we see Josh Dobbs, get somewhere around 40 or even 50 rushing yards in this game.
Fair enough. I have Josh Dobbs over half a touchdown.
I like it.
So the Saints, in the last 4 weeks, the Saints have given up 4 touchdowns to the tight end position alone. Vikings have a pretty damn good one in TJ Hawkinson. So I'll even call it that Hawkinson is going to be the one who gets in the end zone. But I do think that he gets this in second quarter, we're going to call it.
I like it. Alrighty. Terrence asking, is Fournette playing this week? I haven't seen him that he's even activated off the practice squad yet. I could be wrong on that one, but I haven't seen that he's been activated. Terry asking, best streaming defense continue to ride the high. The Chargers, the Jags, New England, Tampa Bay, Cincy.
Terry, woof, man. I want to say Tampa Bay, except their secondary's been playing so stinking bad. But going up against Tennessee, since he's at home, I'm gonna tell you Cincinnati only because I think they're aware enough and have the skill set to get up for another big game, and they know that they can't fall behind the Ravens right now. They got to keep pace and keep winning. So I'm going to tell you Cincinnati, but my level of conviction on that pick is probably only about a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. As much as I want to say, like, the Jags have been pretty good defensively down the stretch. Like, this is not the week that I want to test that one. Right? They're playing San Francisco coming off a bye. Like, there's a whole lot of things that just point to, I think that one's going to get away from them a little bit. Now, New England, you could roll that route, right? Like, just from the standpoint that those international games have been so bad for offense there. And you got a lot of teams that when they travel the international route, especially those Europe games, you even see the broadcast commentators going, these guys look like they're not even awake type of thing trying to play. Like, there's a lot of that, but I think if it's my roster, I'm going to roll Cincy. And I think that's kind of final answer there as I walk myself through that.
Yes. Let's see here. See if I find anything real quick that's gonna change my mind about this.
Fair enough. While you're looking, I'm gonna hit the next comments here. Benson saying that he was just kidding about the Fournette. And Benson also saying that he's there's not a lot of sure things in this world, but Derek Carr being bad is one of them. So the Saints have looked anemic at a lot of different points throughout the season on the offensive side of the ball. So I get what you're saying there. Any luck finding anything?
Yeah, I mean, any way you skin it, the Bengals across multiple platforms and ranking systems are the highest ranked of those teams. There's one argument for Tampa. There's one argument for Tampa Bay being ranked slightly better, but their secondary is so bad that I'm afraid DeAndre Hopkins is just going to go buck wild on them. So there you go. Cincinnati's my first choice, and then I think I would lean Tampa Bay only because it's still a rookie quarterback and Will Levis leading the charge there. So the pass rush could give him a hell of a hard time if he's not able to get it out.
Fair enough. All righty. Green Bay, Pittsburgh. The Packers taking on the Steelers. Steelers are favored by 3.5. The over-under on this one, 38.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Pittsburgh at home. And I'm taking the under. Like, I have no confidence that this game is going to score a whole lot of points, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh at home. The hook scares me. Like, it really does, but I think they find a way to win this game, 17-13. So something in that nature, right? So I think that's well within the realm of possibility and get there. So Pitt under, and it'll be an ugly one, guys.
Yeah, this is not going to be one that I'm going to really be gearing up to try and watch here. There will probably be other games in that same slate, same window that'll be on the TV instead. But Pittsburgh is going to be the call here. They're 3-0 against the spread this season against teams with losing records. Green Bay certainly fits that bill there. So I think Pittsburgh finds a way to not only win, but even cover the spread on this thing as well. I really like that call of that 13-17, 17-13 type of deal in favor of Pittsburgh. So I'm taking the under on this one. One of the props that I really liked was Najee to go over 13.5 rush attempts.
Attempts. Okay. I'm going to take George Pickens to go over 40.5 receiving yards. His little bit of grumbling, his social media removal of all things Steelers, but I think they hurt him, right? They need to get him a little bit more involved. It can't just be Deontay Johnson all the time. The Green Bay secondary typically does a good job, right? That is the strength of that team here at the moment. So while neither Pickens nor Deontay are going to have massive weeks, I think Pickens will have a better week. We will see him with 41 yards receiving. And if they are able to get behind the defense, he's the guy who's going to do it.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that one. So let's go ahead and we're going to head right into our next matchup. And guys, if you haven't done so already, when you're watching on the YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for us. Do us that favor there. Let's go ahead and get to our next matchup here. We have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are favored by 1 point. The over-under on this one, 39.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Tampa Bay, and I'm taking the over. I do think that there's going to be some points scored in this game, as both teams in the secondary have been extremely forgiving to opposing teams here lately. But I'm taking Tampa because they have better skill set players out wide than just the one DeAndre Hopkins.
Fair enough. Now, a couple of things that struck me as crazy on this one when I really started diving into it. Not going to surprise me if we see Tennessee put up 300 plus through the air on this one. That's right. Like they're giving up about almost 280 yards through the air on this one. So very susceptible to the deep ball, getting beat over the top on that one. So we could see a similar game to Will Levis's debut on this one. Wouldn't surprise me to see a big week there. But on the Tampa Bay side of things, I do think that this thing gets held in check more so. And it has to do all in the trenches on this one. Defensive tackle Simmons going up against Cody Mayock on the opposite side of that. Mayock has been not very good. And I think that Baker is going to have a Simmons problem all day long, in which he's going to have to just be looking up and constantly on the move to keep out of that one there. So I think the pass rush keeps this thing closer. I'm going to take Tennessee to cover. I'm going to take the under. And one of the props I really like is Will Levis to go over his 220.5 passing yards.
So selfishly, for the home league, I hope that they have a Simmons problem, because that means Rachaad White's getting a ton of check down work. I went with one of his props just because I don't think people are valuing correctly. Like, Tampa Bay is truly balanced right now. They are not the Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers where they were just dropping back and chucking the ball 40, 45 times a game. They believe in the run game. They're getting Rachaad White absolutely involved. He was RB1 last week. Tennessee has been better against the run, but over the last 4 weeks, they've been middle of the pack. Like, they have not been nearly as dominant as they were the first 5-6 weeks of the season, where they were a top 3 rush defense. They have loosened up here a little bit, so I like that. But to parlay off of your prop here. I'm taking Nuke Hopkins over 4.5 receptions. I think he sees 6, 7, 8 easily, and probably damn near 13 targets.
I like it. All righty. Terrence asking, should I pick up and start Noah Brown over Jerome Ford?
So Noah Brown has a higher ceiling than
Yes.
Jerome Ford will. The Baltimore Ravens, if they are vulnerable, they are more vulnerable on the ground. You just have to be able to keep it close enough the entire game to use that ground game. But they've been, they're 18th against the rush over the last 4 weeks, so very much right in the middle. So Ford has a safer floor. I think you're going to see him with touches probably in the neighborhood of 40 to 45 yards. You hope he can fall in the end zone, but he's not going to. I don't think he's going to wow you because he's still splitting time with Kareem Hunt. Noah Brown with no Nico Collins, it does create an interesting dynamic of speed between Noah Brown and Tank Dell. So, if you believe, Terrence, that the Texans are going to be trailing for a lot of this game and needing to play catch up, Noah Brown's probably the right call because then he's going to see a higher workload, as where I think a lot of people see Baltimore having a lead in the driver's seat for most of this game against Cleveland, much like they did when they played back in week 4 or 5, whatever it was, when DTR made his start, right? Similar game script. The running game went away. So I can lean it either way. If you need the win, right? If you need the points, you're stashing Brown. If you feel like you have horses in other positions based off your matchup and you just want a safe 8 to 10 points, Jerome Ford's probably your 8 to 10 point guy. Noah Brown's your 6 to 16 point guy.
Cosign. I like it. Well said. Nothing else to add. All right. Let's go ahead and head to the next matchup here. We have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Niners favored by 3, the over under 45.5. Thoughts on this one?
It almost feels weird that San Francisco's favored, but at the same time, not favored by more. Like, it is a weird vibe with this game. Now, I think the bye week did them a ton of good. They got healthy. Their offensive line, so Trent Williams, arguably the best left tackle in the NFL, got healthy. He should be playing on Sunday. Deebo Samuel, a very key component to how San Francisco runs this offense, right? It hasn't translated into the fantasy points that people were wanting when they drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round. However, for what the Niners do on the field, it translates very well. He opens up a ton of avenues for Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, and himself at times. So this offense should be better. Brock Purdy will be better with Deebo on the field than he has been the last couple weeks without him. And they have a new toy, right? They got a new pass rusher. So I'm going to stick in there and to learn with Bosa, right? We got Chase Young is who I'm talking about. So I do think that they're going to cause a little bit of havoc. I will go with San Francisco, but I do kind of like the push here at 3. But I'm going to go with San Francisco, but I'm going to take the under. I don't think we see 46 points in this game. We will see a game that is controlled a little bit more on the ground and not necessarily a grimy game, but I do think you see something, 24 to 20 is something that I think this game ends. So just under the total here, but San Francisco starts to right the ship after the bye week. So they go in and get the win.
Fair enough. This one here, I'm gonna think that this one gets on the over, right? Like there's lots of things that play out and make sense on that under, but just I got a sneaky suspicion this thing finds the over on this one. Really not going to surprise me if we look up and see this one get to a 27-24 type of matchup here. The push seems about right on that one. You're mentioning that it seemed a little odd that San Francisco, was favored because of the way they've been playing, and then not favored by more because of how they've kind of done that. Some of that has to do with the fact that Jacksonville's 4-0 since week 5, right? There's 2 teams that are 4-0 since week 5, the Bengals, the Jaguars, and the Jaguars have been playing really well down the stretch, finding ways to just get W's out there. So there's a lot to be said on that one. There's also a lot to be said about San Francisco coming off of a bye week under Kyle Shanahan. They have not been performing. They have not performed well on that over the last several seasons. In fact, if I memory serves right, when I was looking that one up, I didn't write it down, but memory serves right, there like 2-4 against the spread after a bye week with Kyle Shanahan as the coach. All of that to say, I am taking Jacksonville to cover on this one. So I like Jacksonville when they get the points on this thing. I'm taking the over. One of the props I really liked, Brandon Ayuk to go over 4.5 receptions.
I kind of cheated on this one. I'm taking a Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown. The streak remains, right? Like at this point, it is as sure as death and taxes that Christian McCaffrey is going to get in the end zone. So I'm going to try and steal one there and get the easy dub.
I like it. I actually saw somebody that had done the research on that if you had just taken a CMC touchdown and parlayed it every week up until now, all the way back through 17 weeks ago, you would be sitting very pretty. Like the amount of growth on that one was insane.
Oh, I'm sure it was something like 10,000 plus, wasn't it?
It was
if not
10x.
more.
It's a 10x on original type of thing easily. So, alrighty. Terry saying the best waiver ad: Henderson, Christian Watson, JSN, or Noah Brown, half-point PPR. Best streaming is QB Geno, Howell, Purdy, or Carr.
You looking to pick one of these guys up? Here, so Henderson, you basically have one more week, right? You have bye week 9, maybe 2 more weeks. You have bye week 9, then 10 because Kyron can come back 12. So if it's D'Angelo Henderson, obviously you can't play him this week, but the next 2 weeks, if you need some depth at running back, but he hasn't been overwhelming the last couple weeks, right? It's just not what Kyron Williams was before he left. I am not a Christian Watson believer, so I would take JSN over Noah Brown, I think. But I could be persuaded if you need the upside of Noah Brown. There's a higher upside there. And then quarterbacks, I'm leaning Purdy this week out of the group, then Howell, then Geno, then Carr.
Yeah. Yeah, cosign. I'm right there with you. Chaka is, would you trade Olave and Javonte for Jefferson, PPR? The other running backs are Kamara, Hall, Achan, Kyron, Moss. Yes.
I would do this. I mean, Olave's been a little underwhelming this year. Derek and I both thought he'd have a bust out year and just too many drops. Hasn't come to fruition. Javonte has been playing better as of late, but you're not going to start Javonte over Alvin Kamara, Hall, or Achan, Kyron when he comes back. Like Javonte becomes your RB3 at best, most likely 4 or 5 in that scenario. So I have no problem doing this trade to get Jefferson for down the stretch. I think it would be a very good move for your roster.
Yes, agreed. All right, let's hit up the next matchup here. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore favored by 6.5, over under 38.5. Thoughts on this one?
So when they played earlier this season in Cleveland, like I alluded to earlier, DTR started. It was a 28-3 affair where Baltimore really just kind of smacked them around here a little bit because Cleveland could not get anything offensively going. I expect Cleveland's offense to be a little bit more efficient this game with Deshaun playing. However, I'm not betting against Baltimore at home after the last couple weeks. So I'm taking Baltimore to win this game. I'm taking, what did I take, Derek? I'm taking the under. I do think that because Cleveland's offense is going to at least be able to move the ball, it will lead to less possessions for Baltimore to continue to run it up. So under, because it's a divisional matchup. Nevertheless, Baltimore finds a way to win this game by 7. And with the way they've been playing, I think that you would have a hard time telling me that you couldn't put 8.5 on this game, and people still wouldn't be taking Baltimore.
Yeah, you're probably right on that one. This one here, I've got Baltimore kind of running away with it. They are looking incredibly dominant, playing exceptional football in every phase of the game on all three levels there. So I think that they're going to win this thing. I think they're going to figure out a way to get to that 7, the divisional matchup, right? And if yes, other divisions may not necessarily be as inclined to lean as heavily on the under as I think this one's going to be, but that AFC North plays, kind of that gritty, grimy defense, and those divisional matchups get very much that way, where it's just tough, grinded out defense, and you've got to fight for every inch. Not to mention every yard when it's all said and done there. So I think that we're going to see the under come in on this thing. I think we're going to see 17-10 is about where I think that this one's going to play out. Maybe 2013 if we really see some teams go off here. But I think that's kind of the upside, high side of the scoring in this one. All of that to say that I do like Deshaun Watson, though, to go over his passing prop, which is a low 185.5 passing yards.
Fair enough. I'm going to take Kareem Hunt over 23.5 rushing yards. He's been over this total each of the last 4 weeks since their week 5 bye week. He's been seeing more than enough volume as a timeshare with him and Jerome Ford. And I think I feel like this one's set a little bit too low. I think it should be closer to 32 to 35 yards rushing for him as opposed to 23.
I like it. All right, let's head out to the desert there. The Atlanta Falcons taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Atlanta favored by 2, the over under 43.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm buying the Kyler hype for now, and I'm taking the Cardinals. I think it just kind of revitalizes that team. They're also getting James Conner back, which is a big deal for them. So Kyler comes back. He has a full complement of weapons. And I just think that this defense has been playing a little bit better as of late in spurts, but I think better quarterback play. Not that Dobbs didn't do a fine job for them, but I think having their leader back will instantly rally the troops here a little bit, and being able to control the ball on the ground with James Conner will help Kyler ease back in and also shrink the clock so that way the defense doesn't have to do so much.
Yeah, I like that. Like that thought. I'm going to take Arizona as well. A lot of it has to do with everything that you mentioned, but also from the standpoint that Atlanta is bad against the spread. This season, they are 1-5 against the spread when they are favorites, and they are favorited by 2 in this one. So, I don't think that Atlanta finds a way to even win this one. I think Arizona pulls a little bit of the shocker upset, finds a way to get a win at home. All of that to say, I do think that we see the under come into play on this one. I think that this one very well could be a 20-17 type of game. Maybe a 21-18 type of matchup here, but I think we're not gonna get as many points as folks are thinking out there. As far as a prop I really like was Marquise Hollywood Brown to go over 4.5 receptions.
I like that, and I actually took his receiving yards prop. I like him over 53.5. I think he's going to be. I think between him and Trey McBride, both are going to get peppered with targets from Kyler here in this first game.
Yeah, I think so as well. All righty, guys. And if you have questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's talk about those. Let's rock and roll and help y'all get ready to go for week 10 here. All right, next matchup here. We've got the Detroit Lions taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Lions favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 48.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Detroit. I did think about the Chargers here for probably a good 3-5 minutes as I'm kind of chewing on this a little bit, and the more I thought about it, the more I just like the way Detroit's playing. Right? Yes, they had the blip against the
Baltimore.
Ravens, right? And did not look good. So there is always that road scare, right? Goff typically his splits are not as favorable on the road. But nevertheless, I'm interested to see what this team looks like with a full complement of weapons, right? You have obviously St. Brown, you have Laporta, but now you have both running backs. And so I'm interested to really see this game and try and understand what they're going to do, because the Chargers are pretty good against the run, right? Their front seven has been doing a good job against the run. And part of that is because their back end has not been good against the pass, right? They've kind of been letting teams feast on them here a little bit. So, nevertheless, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to say this is the high point game of the week. We're going to see some points, because even when Detroit has a lead late, that's when they start getting a little soft. They go into that prevent shell a little bit early, in my opinion, and teams are able to kind of crawl back in on them. So even if Detroit gets up and after it, like I think they can, you will see the Chargers come storming back, but you will see Herbert start to just air raid it out and crawl back in that game.
Fair enough. I'm going to take Detroit. So I'm right there with you on that one. I do think that they find a way to get this thing done. Not going to surprise when we look up and we see this thing end somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think I've got this at like 23-20, like kind of an odd scoring game on this thing where it's just kind of in that realm there. So really, really more of a push type of thing. But I do think that the under comes into play, right? Like Detroit has done just enough defensively to kind of hold some really good teams and really good offenses in check there. And I think that we do find a way to, or I think they do find a way to get that one done there. So I think that we see an under, but it's a like just barely on the under type of thing. Like this is not going to be a defensive, grind it out and type of deal. It's not going to be Cleveland and Baltimore where we see the defense is prominently featured on that one. But nonetheless, I do think we see the under come into play on this one. One of the props I took, I'm going to go with Monty to find a way to get into the end zone. So I'm taking a Monty anytime TD on this one.
Yeah, and hell, if they get inside the 5, that's where the ball's going, right? So,
That was the
very
thought.
likely. I'm going to take Jared Goff under 5.5 rushing yards. Kind of a weird total, but if Detroit is winning this game like we think he will, I like to have the benefit of a couple 1 or 2 yard losses as he's taking a knee at the end of those games.
Yeah, very well could be. Terry saying there's something about that Chargers pass rush.
Yeah, the rush is great, but if the rush doesn't get home, the DBs get chewed up. So,
Right.
yes, Detroit also has arguably the best offensive line in football.
Right.
They're a little dinged up. I understand that, but they got a lot of depth across that line, and they play very well. So it's going to be a good contest, right? The pass rush against that offensive line. Does Jared Goff have just enough time to find Williams, Reynolds, St. Brown, and hopefully some Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Like we don't want to see Jahmyr Gibbs go away just because Monty's back. We just need to understand what that pairing looks like now that we've seen really what special talent Jahmyr Gibbs truly is.
Right. And Terrence saying flex one. So Terrence, we ran through this one a little bit ago when we were talking on the Noah Brown, right? With it's either Ford or Noah Brown for me on this one, right? For a flex. But I think Kevin summed it up very well when he said it where it's a Noah Brown is going to be your ceiling play. Jerome Ford's going to be your floor play on that one. So it really depends on your matchup there as well and who you're playing against in your fantasy roster, right? Or do you think that you're going to win the matchup and you're going to be pretty safe going into it? If that's the case, and I think that I win my matchup pretty well on that one, I'm going to just roll Jerome Ford, take the kind of that 8 to 10 points type of deal there, and just rock and roll it, right? If I'm having to play behind a little bit, if I'm projected to lose, if I don't feel good about, my upside in some of the other places or my floors in other places, and I need more upside, I would play the Noah Brown route on that one, just so that you can try and pick up that ceiling play, because Noah Brown's got the ceiling play, but he's also got a lower floor out there. So that's one of those that you're going to, if you're kind of playing from behind, so to speak, right, and you got a lower floor, but you got a higher ceiling, like you play the guy with the higher ceiling, because even if he gets you the low floor, you needed that ceiling play to try and get the job done there. And that's kind of where that comes into play there, right? Like Pickens is a guy that's going to go out there and do okay for you, but right? I don't think his floor is as high as Jerome Ford, and I don't think his ceiling's as high as Noah Brown this week. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I would tell you that his floor might be comparable to Ford. Maybe. But with Kenny Pickett throwing the ball, it's questionable. So I'm good with the Brown play. I really am. So, especially like you said, if you think the Texans are going to be playing from behind and playing catch up, Stroud's got to throw it. Can't go to Tank Dell every time. And Brown's going to find a way to get open. They're going to take a couple deep shots to him at least once a half. So there's nothing wrong with playing Brown and trying to capitalize on that.
Right. So, alrighty. Next matchup. Let's get it. New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. Dallas favored by 17. The over-under on this one, 38.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Dallas because when they win, they just crush, right? And they have Tommy DeVito at quarterback. So you're not really worried about the passing attack. He's not going to be able to take advantage of a dinged up Cowboys secondary. And I don't know how he's going to survive Micah Parsons and company there in the front seven. Like, it's going to get ugly. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Saquon Barkley with another 36 touches, right? Just to try and generate some sort of offense. Darren Waller's obviously on IR. It's not a good matchup. So the Giants defense has been playing a little bit better as of late, which is why I think I lean towards the under between that. And I think the Cowboys try and get their run game right this game a little bit. Yes, Dak's going to do his deal. CeeDee Lamb's going to get his, but I don't know that you're going to see him absolutely abandon the run game like they did kind of against Philly to keep in that game. They're going to have control of it. They're going to be able to kind of mix and match and play balanced offense, and it'll typically lead towards the under as long as the Cowboys don't get 2 defensive touchdowns again like they did early on in the season when they had, 36 points or whatever it was for defensive scoring is absolutely outrageous. So, but hell, you might see that again. I mean, that offensive line for the Giants is not good. So DeVito's got to watch out. He's got to keep his head on a swivel and get the ball out quick.
Yeah. And this is one of those that it's hard to call for a team to cover 17.5 and then go for an under, especially when the under is as low as 38 points, right? Like it's just kind of the thing, but that's what I'm going to do here. I don't think Dallas finds a way to get this thing done. I think they find a way to keep this thing under at this point. And I think it's also not going to surprise me if we look up at the end of this game and we're looking at a 30-3 game when it's all said and done, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's where I kind of think that this is going to come out to play, to the point where I think Dallas jumps up early and we just see them try and salt the game away, running the ball and getting that thing done there. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Dallas finds a way to cover that thing. I think that we find the under on this one. One of the props I really like was Tony Pollard to go over 2.5 receptions. He's found a way to get 3 in almost every single game this season, except for like 2.
Yep, and I'm taking – what did I take in this game? I'm taking Dak Prescott over 10.5 rushing yards. He's been running the ball a little bit better. The Giants' pass rush has been getting home from time to time. They actually have 16 sacks over the last 4 games. So, Dak will be able to move. He's shown he's been willing to do that here the last few weeks. So I think he easily scampers for more than 10 or more than 11 rushing yards.
I like it. All right, Terrence saying that he is needing some more upside going against Burrow, Eckler, Pollard, Waddle. Well, Waddle's on bye.
Waddle's on bye.
Godwin, Komet, Kamara, the Packers, and Koo.
Yeah, so take the upside.
Yeah.
Take the upside.
And then hope that they don't change their roster out to swap out Waddle there. So, but yeah. All right. And he said he's just trying not to overthink it. It's a must win for him. Feel better rest of the season with Achane and Kyron Williams returning soon.
That'll help for some upside as well.
Yep, absolutely. Daniel over on the YouTube saying just having decision on these 3, need to start to Ridley, Lockett, Addison.
So out of this group, Addison's the must start for me, even though he arguably has the most challenging matchup. He is the clear alpha until Jefferson gets back. Dobbs will find a way to get him the ball. That's just the way the Vikings offense is constructed, right? They will funnel the ball into their best players. So Addison, Hawkinson will see tons of targets. Ridley or Lockett. So I know that Derek has a scorned lover's heart for Calvin Ridley, and in a lot of cases, I'm right there too. Like I think I bombed a ton of best ball leagues because I took Ridley in a lot of places over the likes of a Keenan Allen. So I'm having to live with that. But I'm going to tell you Lockett because he's playing at home. And the Giants just moved off their two best pass rushers. So it should lead towards more time for Geno, even though Seattle's offensive line has been extremely banged up. I'm going to tell you Lockett has the ability to have a bigger game than Calvin Ridley can against the 49ers.
Yeah. And taking my Ridley scorned out of it, right? Like, actually, I don't feel bad about the. Anyway, moving on.
You just traded him away. You don't feel bad about it anymore,
right? So I no longer have to make that decision on do I start Calvin Ridley or do I leave him on my bench for other wide receivers, right? Like, no longer have that one. So I'll look at this with much clearer eyes now. I have a feeling. But yes, I'm right there with you. Addison is the guy out of this group you got to play. I do think that they'll find a way to feed him, get the ball done, and he'll have a pretty darn good fantasy week for you. Ridley, Cincinnati's been okay on the back end there, against the pass, things like that. And Ridley is not like Cincinnati or the Jaguars are not utilizing Calvin Ridley on anything other than outside routes, right? Like he's playing purely outside the numbers. He's not like some of these other guys where they then flex into the slot and move him around to get him open and get him in position there. So if Ridley doesn't catch a longer touchdown for you, you're going to have a hard time getting fantasy points on that one. However, this week, Tyler Lockett is a guy that I really, really like kind of going down the stretch here. Washington is susceptible to getting beat over the top and getting beat deep on passing attacks here. So it's not going to surprise me if we see Tyler Lockett, blow up and catch a long pass in this one where we see Tyler Lockett come down with one reception for 30 plus yards and then, get his kind of normal bevy of work there as well. So really not going to surprise me if we see Lockett go, 5 for 60 in this one. And we see Ridley get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 for 40 type of deal. Right. So Lockett would be the way that I would roll on that one there. Anything else to add on that? Any other thoughts?
No, I think we're united there.
Fair enough. Terry, last question. Would you drop Deshaun Watson for Purdy or Levis, who has the highest ceiling rest of season?
I would take Purdy over Levis rest of the season, and really I'd take Purdy over Deshaun Watson. So Cleveland has the fourth most difficult schedule for quarterbacks rest of season. So weeks 9 through 17. Purdy has the 13th most difficult. So it's not super easy, but the 49ers are going to be in play. They're going to be pushing to get back in that division. They got a couple matchups with Seattle coming up. So I would tell you that Purdy is going to be a better play than Deshaun rest of season. And mainly at any moment, Deshaun's arm could fall off, it feels like, right? So that's a key component too. I'd rather have a guy I know I can play, even if he might have a little bit less talent. He's on a better team, has better skill players around him. So I would take Purdy over Levis and Deshaun rest of season.
Yeah, Levis is a guy it's going to be a pure boom bust play for you, right? Like
he'll get figured out once they get film on him, right? Like he's still very young. They're still acquiring film on him, but they'll figure out some tendencies. He's going to continue to see looks that he's never seen before and have some mistakes. It's the rookie way, right? We've seen it with Stroud. We've seen it with Bryce Young. All these guys. So it's not. It just hasn't been his time because people haven't seen enough snaps yet. But that time is coming quickly.
Right. So yeah, right there. So this week here, I think Levis goes bonkers and has probably the best fantasy week between the three this week, but outside of this week, I think you get a lot of pedestrian performances there on that one, especially because teams are going to start kind of finding him out and figuring that one out there. Purdy, Watson, for me, it's kind of a coin flip. Like I see these guys back to back rest of season rankings. I do give a slight lean towards Purdy, just because, as you said earlier, he's got the better strength of schedule rest of season. Deshaun Watson certainly has, more talent on that one and can certainly do different things there. But yeah, I think I got to lean Purdy nonetheless on that one. So it is super close, and I got those guys back to back rest of the season though, Terry. George Play on the YouTube. Should I trade Olave for Montgomery? Some of that depends on what you've got in the running back room and what you got in the wide receiver room. But off the cuff, I would say if you can get Montgomery for Olave, I'd probably do it. But George, we would need to know more about what your wide receiver room and your running back room looks like before we could say yes or no on that one. Go ahead and post it in the chat, and we'll come back to that one. Unless you've got a smash yes or smash no.
It's definitely not a smash no. It's definitely not a smash no. Like this one requires a little bit of thought based off a roster construct and what you're thinking. And obviously Monty provides a huge touchdown upside that we just haven't seen Olave with. Both teams are going to be in playoff battles. The AFC South is just kind of a muck of average to just below average teams that are trying to find their way. And right now the Saints are leading that race. So they're going to remain relevant. Here we go.
So the team is Tua, CMC, Kenneth Walker, Kupp, Waddle, Njoku, and Flex Olave. The bench is Warren, Fournette, Keaton, Dell, Deontay, JSN, Quentin.
I think you need to do it. You need some running back depth here, if nothing else, right? If Kenneth Walker really does get injured, you're going to need someone to plug in there. Obviously, CMC is a great anchor. And we've yet to see Waddle have kind of that big blow up game. But I think Deontay Johnson, volume wise, will just about cover what Olave can do. Maybe not quite all the way, but he sees enough targets game in and game out. In PPR leagues, he'll at least be competitive against Olave, but his average depth of target's like 7 yards less. So, you lose some of the yardage bonus points. But I think you'd be wise to make this move to give yourself some running back depth that's going to be needed here down the stretch for you.
Yeah, cosign. All right, next matchup. Washington Commanders, Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 6.5. The over under 44.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Washington to cover, right? So I do think Seattle wins this game. I just don't think they win it by 7. They're licking their wounds a little bit after kind of getting destroyed, for lack of a better term, against Baltimore. They get to come home in front of the 12s, which is always a good thing. But Washington's a pesky 4-5, right? Like they don't roll over. And Sam Howell turns into a good gunslinger, gets some good points late, is not afraid to continue to drive the ball down the field. Jahan Dotson has emerged here the last couple weeks, which is a good thing. Curtis Samuel is coming back, which he was highly involved in the offense. Terry McLaurin has been kind of standard Terry McLaurin, right? He's never been as good as the fantasy community wanted him to be coming out of Ohio State, but he has been a consummate back end wide receiver too. Like that's just kind of his role in fantasy life. So I think that they do enough there. Seattle needs to get right offensively, right? We need Geno to kind of step it up here a little bit. He has not looked like himself from last year at all. Needs to kind of have a game for himself. So I do think that there's a potential of that. But I don't think it's going to happen that great. I think they want to run the ball. And now that they're back home, they'll play with a lead. I think they're going to milk a lot of this clock. So I'm taking Washington and the under.
Fair enough. I am also going to take Washington, who is 4-1 against the spread on the road lately. So I think that they do find a way to keep this thing, 3-point type of game. But I do think that we find the over just slightly. Like, this is one of those, I really think this is going to be about a 24-21 type of game. Like, it just squeaks on the over on this one. I do think that Lockett, though, has a very good game where we see him go over 57.5 receiving yards.
Fair enough. I have Terry McLaurin just under 65.5 receiving yards.
Fair enough. All right, next matchup, the Sunday night game. We got the Jets taking on the Raiders, and New York favored by 1. The over-under 36.5. Thoughts on this one?
The Raiders are terrible. The Jets defense alone, I think, might be able to win this game for them. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. I'm taking the under, and I'll take the Jets to win this game. In kind of a really ugly Sunday night game. I'm surprised they didn't flex this one out.
Yeah, I was really surprised they didn't flex that one out, but I'm right there with you. I think that the under is certainly in play. Like, I'm thinking we're going to be hard pressed to even see 10 total points scored in the first half of this thing. Like, it's not going to surprise me if we go to halftime with a
3-6.
Yeah, 6-3, 3-3 even, 0-3, like something in that kind of combination there. So kickers, I like the kickers in this game. Zerline's a let's go get it. Carlson, let's go get it. But I think those will be some of your highest scoring fantasy players this week out of this matchup. So I am going to take the under. I am going to take the Jets to get the win on the road there. As far as a prop I really like was Breece Hall going over 18.5 receiving yards.
Thinking along the same vein here, I'm taking Breece Hall over 2.5 receptions.
That was the one I really wanted, was the 2.5 receptions, but somebody beat me to it. So I like that call. All righty, let's go ahead and head to the Monday night game here. We've got the Broncos taking on the Bills. Buffalo favored by 7. The over-under 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
There's some places you can get it 7.5 now, which I like even more because I'm taking Denver to cover the 7. Their defense has been playing better the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks if you count the bye. So now they got a chance to get healthy. They got a chance to put in a couple new wrinkles, and this Buffalo team has not been nearly as dominant as we have seen them in recent years. Their defense is very plagued with injuries here at the moment. Their offense, they are stagnant at times because they refuse to do anything besides have Allen do a 3 to 5 step drop and then just figure it out. However, Dalton Kincaid, expect him to have a good game. Diggs, I think, will have a good, not great game, as I expect him to see a lot of Patrick Surtain. And ultimately, this game to me trends towards the under just by a little bit here, but I do have the Broncos covering 7.
Fair enough. I've got the over coming in on this one here. Like, I think that we can see this one get to like 27-24. Like, I think we get a few points here on a Monday night here. It'll be interesting to see, right? Like, what does the Bills defense really truly look like in the Von Miller revenge game type of narrative here, with him coming back, and looks like he's fully kind of ready to go here. And what is he going to do against his former team that traded him away when anyway, narrative street
He asked to be traded. You can't. Is it a revenge game when you ask to be traded and they oblige? I mean, now they traded him to LA and then he signed with Buffalo, right? It's like,
right.
That is what it is. But it's 2 teams ago and he asked to be traded and they did him a solid.
Right. I get all that, but that's one of the things I keep hearing all throughout is the narrative around that one. I don't much buy into it, but here's some actual facts for you. Denver, coming into Monday night, has lost 7 straight Monday night football games. Ouch. Buffalo is 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games. The good news is one of these team streaks is going to get snapped on this one. I think that it's, well, it could be. We could actually have a push.
To.
Yeah. Well, fair. I started going down that road. I still think Denver finds a way to get sneaky on this one. They could even pull out a win here. But I think that we do see the Broncos get inside that 7. I do like the over. One of the props I really like, Josh Allen to go over 0.5 interceptions. He's thrown an interception, at least one interception in almost every game this season. I look for that trend to continue.
I like that one a lot. I just about took that one. I pivoted though. I went with James Cook over 20.5 receiving yards. As you kind of look at how the game script for him has gone, bad week, good week, bad week, good week, bad week, good week. The Broncos happen to land on a good week. I'm going to play the trend and say that he has 21 plus receiving yards.
All righty. I like it. Well, guys, that takes us down to the end of the slates here. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's get those answered, talked about here real quick. And if not, we're going to call it a night here. Any kind of thoughts, final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners while we're seeing if anybody posts in the chat here.
Sunday is not overly exciting for the NFL slate, but if you're a college football fan, the Saturday slate should be really good. So there's a lot of really good games on Saturday. I'm looking forward to Saturday a little bit more than Sunday. But nevertheless, final pushes. Some leagues have trade deadlines this week. Some have them over the next 2 weeks, right? Just kind of depending on how your construct is sorted out here. So, kind of the last haul, if you will, to be really paying attention of what your schedules look like for key or fringe players, really fringe players, weeks 14 through 17 to make that final push to help be successful in playoffs.
Absolutely. Right. And if you got any questions about players that maybe you should be looking at for a strength of schedule, guys to potentially go out and target for that. On the Tuesday episode, Kevin and I went through and identified 4 players at every position that aren't the tier 1 type of players that you're going to have to really go crazy on a trade offer to try and get, but guys that you can get a little bit of even a buy even or buy low type of thing, that the schedule and everything else kind of aligns for them, that they should have a very good end of season stretch for you. So go back and check out like the last half hour, 20 minutes of that Tuesday episode, and you'll be able to see it all there and get caught up there. But I don't see any of the questions coming in here, so I think that's going to do it for us. You can find us across all those socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. Do us a favor, head over to the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, ring that bell. Of course, you can hit us up on any of those socials there as well if you have any questions before we're back on Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.